Welcome into a very special edition of the Full-Time Roundup. As leagues continue to progress and finish, we continually cover and recap them each week for you. Of course, at the end of each season, though, that means that we do have to recap and round up those respective seasons. Luckily, we were able to do that firstly with MLS, which did just wrap up its season. Congratulations to the Columbus Crew for winning MLS Cup a couple weeks ago. And we figured that we would bring in a couple of special guests to talk about the MLS season that was with us. So we have a very special episode. We are joined by none other than the Charlotte Soccer Show. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you are traveling for the holidays, as Daniel and I are today, we wish you a very, very safe and happy holidays, and we will see you on the next edition of the Roundup. Welcome into a special edition of the Full-Time Roundup. We are going to be focusing primarily tonight on MLS and rounding up a special edition of MLS in the season that was. We also have, Daniel, two very special guests with us tonight. I don't know about you, they're friends of mine, they're tremendous friends of mine. They have one of the best podcasts here locally in Charlotte. They cover the MLS team here locally, Charlotte FC, probably the best of anybody. Without further ado, I cannot hide the surprise anymore. Of course, we have the folks at Charlotte Soccer Show, Danny and John. Welcome to the show.
Cheers.
Such a pleasure to have you guys join us tonight.
Hey,
Thank
man.
you for doing this.
Double the
Cheers.
DB, double the fun, you know. Let's go.
Absolutely, exponential.
My favorite part about this podcast is that the way I met the first DB, Danny Brackets, was like, you tweet at us at the show handle, and I'd be like, DB, is this your burner account, dude? It's like, it's DB's hot takes.
It was the joke for so long that DB was DB, and we didn't know that there was a second one.
yeah.
So
this is the first time I've seen I'm doing a show, the two DBs.
Yeah.
How far we've come.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
far we've
Yes.
come.
Well, again, this is a special edition of MLS Roundup. We're going to try and do some more of these going forward, rounding up as kind of a recap of each season. So, again, we'll start with MLS since that just wrapped. Danny was actually at MLS Cup, so we'll get his thoughts on that, and then we'll kind of dive into some other thoughts around MLS this year.
The long, never-ending season. I mean, we went from like the third week of February to the second week of December.
What was the longest season in history?
In history, that's right.
Crazy.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I do want to start there, actually, if you guys don't mind. I mean, obviously we're here right now at Elizabeth Parlor Room, where you guys are kind of hosts here and family here, as we have the banner behind us. You mentioned
the spot, man.
EPR's the spot.
We also
So-
started our first
We did.
podcast
So
here.
full circle, just to
I
bring
love
everything
it.
back.
Soccer soul is strong here.
You mentioned a long season. Like I said, we watched a lot of games here. We watched the new edition of the Leagues Cup. Just give us your thoughts overall, Danny or both John, or both. I know John is not as much an aficionado as MLS,
Well,
but
no, here's the thing. I've got opinions on MLS.
perfect,
But I don't
perfect.
Like,
So what were your guys' thoughts on the season overall?
I would just say ended on a great note, but still took way too long. John, what do you think? Like,
Well, I agree. 100%. Yes. By the end of the playoffs, it was like, how long we've been doing this?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
The international break is what
There's
just
like
crushed
multiple
it.
international breaks that kill the momentum of the playoff tournament. It's rough.
Leagues Cup during the middle as well. Thoughts on Leagues Cup at this point? I know Charlotte had a rough go in it. Any
We
thoughts
kinda
on
went
particular?
far, though.
Yeah, Leagues Cup was great for Charlotte. Leagues Cup was great for Charlotte because we made it to the quarterfinal, learned how to win a little bit, learned how to play in urgent circumstances a little bit better, and then got like 2.5 weeks of rest and recuperation, like bringing the new players like Deagra and Erden, like started training at that time.
I was looking back at some Charlotte FC players and like how they performed throughout the season, and so I had the opportunity to kind of look at the Leagues Cup run and kind of read how some players were maybe coming out of injury into the Leagues Cup, and it felt like a new competition. So I like that aspect of it. I like the fact that Leagues Cup is in existence. I'm thinking though that they need to change it to potentially the FA Cup style, right? Where there's weekends where MLS is off and Leagues Cup is on, right? Therefore, you're not just stopping the entire season for a month.
Right. And you got to coordinate with that with MX and all that, and it can be tough. It's all building towards someday they want to combine the MLS.
There has been
and
talk
the
about that,
MX
right?
and
A lot
the
of talk about that.
North American Super League. I mean, that's 10 years at the earliest that it would even really seriously be steps in that direction. But I'm just like, with the coordination that we saw with Leagues Cup is a step in that direction. I think that's good.
Yes,
But like,
yes.
I love the idea of like, competition that we're not used to, like clubs from another league or just clubs from another division. things that are new, that are not, Atlanta United and Orlando and Nashville and stuff like that, like, are great to me.
Two of my favorite moments of the Charlotte FC season were Necaxa.
Yeah,
You
good
know,
one.
at the home match in the group stage, and then when we won the shootout against, or the PK shootout against Houston.
That was a good time.
Yes.
which we were here
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
which
we
was
were here at
craziness.
DPR
We were all
for-
here for.
Yeah.
I definitely want to dive into a little bit further into that at some point, but I do want to ask, you guys mentioned the season being long. Of course, I'm sure you guys will cover this. The schedule is released on Wednesday, I believe, for MLS this year. So are there big changes in that coming, or do you guys think it's kind of same ho-hum as last year?
I mean, they just came out with their rule changes that were not that big of a deal, like not that
There were good ones.
earth-shattering.
I thought
I
there were
really
some good
like the
ones, though.
clock change. I like the fact that they're going to be realistic and like live in real life and like just let the stadium clocks run up past 90 and count the full time. I hated that they would
Starting the
stop at 90.
timer every
Yeah,
single
everyone's
game
got
was
yeah,
infuriating.
everyone's
It
got
was-
their phone out
Yeah.
with a little timer clock going.
Well,
like
that's
as soon as the extra time's
not
announced.
everyone though. That's the
Yeah,
that's-
not everyone.
That's why I don't like. I like the rule, but I don't like the rule.
Okay.
And the reason why is because if you're the one that has the clock, everyone's like, dude, what's the
yeah,
the
yeah,
number?
they're hitting
What-
you on
and
the
you feel like
shoulder
you
and
know,
stuff.
and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, you
yeah.
should have paid attention.
You should've
Yeah,
done when it started, when
exactly.
it started.
Synchronized
90.
watches, yeah, exactly. But I like that that'll count up. Other than that, there are not a ton of new rules. Were like they were more like procedural and like nothing super significant that jumped to me. As for when the schedule comes out, that I just mentioned that because I think the schedule will follow a similar thing where it'll be kind of conservative. I don't think there'll be drastic changes to anything. Hopefully they'll compress a few things. I expect there's been talk of will we continue to play through international breaks. I think that
Yeah,
we
that was part of the
probably will.
Messi thing.
I
know
mean,
that
that would be a
conversation all
problem,
got
though.
started
Like,
when Messi
we think the
came.
season's long now. Imagine if teams like the games that were played during international breaks, if that hadn't happened, it would have been even longer. So it's just like I don't know, like. Everyone raved about the new playoff form. Everyone inside the league raved about the new playoff format, but the fans were not. It didn't really capture fan imagination at all. I don't think.
A little
I
strange
actually-
format, too.
I actually have a proposal. We saw a new
Okay.
tournament in the NBA this year with the in-season tournament kind of being at the start of the season. What if they did the Leagues Cup at the start? It would be a glorified preseason, kind of, but what if they did that and kind of let everyone get in their full momentum right before the MLS started?
Well, I think the way that Liga MX works is that they have two different seasons.
Right.
They reward two trophies, and their first season starts in January, and so it would be their season starting as well as the MLS season starting right in that early part of the year. So you just have to coordinate. I like the idea.
Okay.
I like the idea, but if you were able to coordinate in that first to start the year and have those matches early and award that cup by let's say June.
Yeah,
At the end,
exactly.
like the Premier League is raising their trophy, and it's also the League's Cup
Right.
trophy that time of the year.
If you could time a big Leagues Cup title match to a Premier League, title match similar around there, maybe I don't know if the timing quite works out. I do know that that's always the complaint about CONCACAF Champions League and
Yeah.
now the CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's been rebranded. Is that MLS teams are there at the start of their season, and Liga MX have been playing for 2 months, and they're like ready to go, and they know what they're doing with their approach, and like we're just figuring it out. So that's why it's harder for MLS teams to win. So I would hate to see like there is some truth to that. So I think the same thing would be said if the Leagues Cup was earlier. But
And we've talked about this before, Danny, like getting everyone on the same schedule or the same calendar. Do you think that that's something that MLS would look at? You mentioned it a little bit earlier with the
I hope
international
not.
break and
I
not
hope
taking
not
a break.
because I like
but-
soccer year round. I
Yeah.
love year round
with
soccer.
you.
When MLS is on break, I focus a little more on your guys' beat, the Big
This,
Five.
this is a good take of yours.
Yeah.
yeah. I've heard this take earlier this week, or within the last couple weeks from him, and I was like, well, it's hard to argue with that.
It is. It
The
is hard
summer
to argue.
ball is undefeated.
Yeah.
The summer ball, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
even
hot.
with the Charlotte with the summer
Yeah.
showers and all in the hot
Right.
and everything, it's still fun that you kind of can take a break from the domestic or the European leagues, and you can kind of really focus on MLS because there's like nothing on really at that time in sports,
Yeah.
generally. So that's when I think that's the perfect time for people to buy in because everyone wants to watch something, during the summer. So it's either baseball and soccer's kind of getting up to that point where it might be bigger than baseball. So
Yeah, because there's more at stake in every
Exactly.
match compared to a baseball game that happens, 6 times a week.
precisely. And I actually had another question for you. So the limitations with the roster kind of came out a little bit, and with Messi coming in and people expecting bigger changes, what's your guys' take on that? As we're struggling a little bit in the Champions League when it comes to, against Mexican teams and things like that. Are you know, TAM was updated a little bit, but what do you think on that?
I think the changes are going to help us a little bit. I mean, teams, they up the thing that TAM does. This I can speak of it in Charlotte terms, and it applies to all clubs. Is there's always the mythical Charlotte FC is going to buy down Kamil Josviak. And, he's no longer going to be a DP. We're going to put him on a high TAM salary. Well, TAM's a little higher now, so it's even easier to do that. And not every club, but many clubs have guys in that situation who are like fringe DPs that's a little easier for them to free. So we didn't get the fourth DP slot, but there are a dozen or so teams, including potentially Charlotte, who might have an easier time freeing up their third DP slot that's now being occupied by someone that they could be paying some. They use that spot to pay way more salary if they wanted. I don't know that the Messi effect really had a big effect. Like everyone talked about it. Oh, the Messi effect. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Fourth DP, huge salary cap changes. They're going to revamp everything. So to turn MLS into a super league didn't happen at all. So I think we'll see similar things with the schedule when it comes out. I think it'll be very much like structured along the same lines as last year's schedule.
It's funny that you put it that way because now I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like, yeah, everybody, all the presidents went up to New York this past week, and they had a meeting to discuss these new rules and regulations. And I'm not saying that they came out with their tail between their legs.
When you go in talking about fourth DP and you come out with a little more TAM, it's like that's.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off that,
it's because of the weak clubs. I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, it's because of the weak clubs. It's because of the clubs, and that's why, across MLS they want parity in the system.
Exactly.
Sure.
And the weak clubs want to make sure that they get their own.
We speak from a position of people are going to say Charlotte's a weak club because we were young and we barely made the playoffs one time. But we don't feel like a weak club because we know our owner is rich. So it's like but there's other clubs out there that have more history than us who are just struggling to get by. They don't want everyone else to be able to buy those 4TP because they don't want to be obligated to buy one. And that's the vein that won out, like John's saying, that like the old boys club stayed old instead of moving forward.
In one of the tremendous tifos, I guess you guys say, we were in discourse about that, and he was saying the two of the on the board are two teams that have never won the cup, are 24th and 25th all time in wins and stuff so it seems like, are those people on the board the right people to take this league forward? Does Garver have to shake up his board if he wants the league to keep growing?
The soccer,
which I hate that handle more than anything. But
I've heard tell that he's not even a fan of the game, so who knows? I think he's at one time quoted saying he didn't grow up a soccer fan or something like that. I think he probably by now he's got it. He's been around long enough. He better like the
He's
game
a business executive.
Yeah. But he's more of a business executive than a soccer fan in his commission role. So who knows? Maybe there should be a shakeup. I'm a believer in shakeup for shakeup's sakes a lot of time. At the same time, things are going really well in MLS from the business perspective. And all the complaints that are coming that we're talking about here are fan complaints that are valid, but like I said, everyone at Apple and everyone in New York MLS office loved the new playoff format. The fans didn't really fall in love with it, but it made money, and their point of view is, whatever, fans will fall in love with it eventually. We're just going to keep doing this.
They might be playing the long game, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The long game is that Miami's coming back,
right?
And they might win the cup next year.
Yeah, and you heard that in Soccer Don's kind of end of statement saying if we change the rules for no salary cap, it'll be because we're in a good place as a league. So it will be interesting.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
And so it is interesting to look at, of course, as a European fan, and the slant that Danny and I look at it, or Daniel, as there's two DBs here, Daniel look at it, from a European perspective. It is challenging because you just see all these clubs pay for these top players, and you can't get that, that same structure here in the MLS, which is interesting. But you mentioned Messi, Danny, and just kind of wanted to get, I know we've talked about it ad nauseum, I feel like, throughout the season. Was the experiment worth it at this point? Take aside from the roster changes and all that, but just the experiment that was bringing Lionel Messi to MLS, was it successful in your eyes from a league perspective last year?
I would say as of now, yes, but the jury's still out in terms of it could change. If 5 years from now we see some type of oh, it was a false, it was like a rocket shooting in the night that flamed out and didn't really build anything. Like, I do know already there's a lot of backlash from the pre-Messi Miami fans, the people who were diehards of the Flamingo Nation or the Heron Nation, Inter Miami. They made that Fort Lauderdale drive,
Miami that plays in Fort Lauderdale, by the way.
for years for several years before Messi ever showed up, and now they're kind of priced out. They're kind of like put to the side, or at best taken for granted, at worst completely.
It's because their stadium's not big enough.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like doesn't fit as many.
They should be
people
playing
as
at Joe Robbie. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Hard Rock or something like that. Or,
Right, just go play at Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got enough teams there, I feel like.
Well, they're building a new stadium. I think closer to their downtown. I think it is, but I don't know. But we used to make. I mean, Miami was a meme. They were a joke. We would say Inter Miami is a brand, not a club. And
Yeah,
before they got Messi,
yeah,
they
yeah.
were just completely written off. But they had these diehard fans that loved him. So now Messi's here. The world loves Miami. Messi's jersey, I think a pink Messi Inter Miami jersey was rated in the top 5 fashion statements of the year by Vogue magazine for 2023 on their year-end list. And that's not a sports magazine. Trust me. I don't read it, but I
you
saw
do
this
get it
headline.
delivered weekly.
Yeah, exactly. No, I told that headline to my daughter, and she was like, "You read Vogue?" And I was like, "No, I read headlines." And so I'm just saying that is that sustainable? Who knows? Because Messi only has what? I think Messi will be good this year. I think he's going to bang a goal or an assist or both every 6 out of every 7 games this year.
Oh, yeah. His move over here was incredible. Like in retrospect, when you think about it, how quickly he took the center stage, and it was Leagues Cup too. Like that was it. But at the same time, though, we were talking about Leagues Cup earlier in the show, and Leagues Cup was Messi's cup. Messi was not able to bring Miami into the league, right? Into the playoffs. I'm saying,
Yeah.
and so for me, it's like, okay, he accomplishes his first goal.
They didn't even get to
but they
decision
don't
day.
accomplish the second goal.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, can they accomplish that next goal the next year, which is winning MLS Cup? Because you have to go into the MLS season if you have Messi and Busquets
and Alba.
Also,
on your roster. It's just like you're the favorite. Right. You have to win.
Don't forget, lost the U.S. Open Cup final to Nashville.
That is true.
Can't ever forget that either.
Did Messi start that match?
I don't think he played, right? Oh, no, he did. He definitely did. Excuse me.
He
Yeah.
did.
Oh,
He
he
did.
for sure did. Like,
Yes.
because I have friends in Nashville that bought tickets definitely to go for sure. And
So when it comes to MLS, we've seen a couple different approaches, especially this year, on how to build a roster, right? You had Cincy, who was arguably the best team in the MLS, who went from bad to best. And then you have the St. Louis with no DPs. Then you have like an LAFC team who's stacked with all the headliners. Do you think there's a best way to build a roster, or do you think that's the beauty of the salary cap? How you build the roster kind of can be
I
very
think
diverse.
there's a model for success, and it's one you need. I think you really need your top DP to be dominant. Your top DP needs to be a dominant offensive force. That's like the first peg in the model.
Like Cucho Hernandez.
Yeah,
for
like Cucho
Columbus.
Hernandez,
Buonga.
or like Buonga for LAFC. And then the second DP needs to make major contributions as well, just like a Carlos Vela, Diego Rossi for Columbus. So you have to hit on the DPs. And then I really think your central midfielder is almost more important than your center back line. Like your 2 center halves, as they would say over there in Europe, are good and need to have a partnership. But that destroyer DM is like such a good role that needs to be had, whether it was Darlington Nagbe for Columbus, who just breaks up attacks, or for Ilie for LAFC would do it, and everyone that's good has one for sure. Jose Martinez for Philadelphia is like the model that this would be built on for me, who I'd love to go get. Danny Pereira for Austin, he's the only one of the few good things about Austin FC. He's on the free agent market, and Charlotte's like in the mix, but I think LA wants him, so I don't think we're going to end up with him. But someone like that would be great for Charlotte to bring in. It's good for any MLS team to have, for sure. So you can't really necessarily spend DP cash on that, but you really need that destroyer role. And then, beyond that, it just goes to coaching style. I mean, and you need a good goalkeeper. You need a shot-stopping goalkeeper because they face a lot of shots. But it really is all about those DPs need to just be world beaters. Your DPs need to be your best players by far, and like the best teams have the best DPs. Cucho is the perfect example for sure. I also would I would love to hear about this. John, this is a good question for John especially. The Shield versus the Cup. Like what? And we talk about a long season and especially long playoffs. Like you said, Cincinnati was the best team. They did have the Shield, and the Shield shines forever. But like
Chiellini said that too.
I don't think that that Cincy was the best team by far. I thought Columbus was better than Cincy all year, because of guys like Cucho Hernandez. And Columbus was my easy pick at the start of the playoffs. It was like Columbus Crews winning MLS Cup easily, and they did have to have an insane comeback against Cincy to pull it off, but they were in control all the way against LAFC in that final, and I was in the stands to see it. So.
For me, it's Supporter Shield. It's not even close. It's easy.
Season long trophy,
it's
right?
It's not. Well, yes, I love a season long trophy. I think that's when you think about it from like a European point of view. There is no playoffs, right, except for in the championship to get promoted, and in other leagues too down the line. But that's not actually to win the league. But for MLS, it's one of those situations where there's 29 teams. There's not 20. So you're one of 29.
Sure.
So to me, that's more impressive than winning a league, than winning a MLS Cup over a knockout style tournament.
Absolutely.
3 legs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
The 3 legs is what really got me in the
The round one
like
best.
NBA.
Well, it's best of 3. It's not necessarily 3
Yes,
legs,
yeah.
but it's best of 3. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of
There's
questions.
only a couple of the series just went to 3.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, like, oh man.
A lot of thoughts here, but I do want to kind of piggyback off, John, where you were talking about as far as 29 teams. We're looking at potentially adding a couple more. Of course, San Diego will be added
They will
next
be the
year.
30th. Yeah. Not next year.
The year
25.
25, right?
Yes.
What is from your guys'
Which they did
perspective?
land in Donovan Dirty, by the way.
Yeah, they
Total-
definitely
we
did.
can do a side
Absolutely
episode
did.
on that, but
Yep.
has to be
Oh,
said.
absolutely.
Every time they're mentioned, it has to
San,
be
what
said.
was it, the Loyal or the Way? That was
Whoever they are.
yeah. What
We hate them.
How far do you
Already.
think this expansion goes from a league's perspective? How many teams do we get? Do we ever get promotion relegation? Kind of where do you guys stand on that as far as next steps?
Garber was asked about that at the recent, sort of season ender, and he said, not happening. He said, we're trying to get San Diego in. He said 5 years at minimum before we would even think about an expansion conversation.
got an even number now,
Something
so
like
let's
that.
just
Yeah.
cap it.
Yeah, because Danny and I have talked
Now,
about it as far as maybe 40 teams.
Having said that, he did name Sacramento, Las Vegas, and like one other city
No, I guarantee-
as
no.
markets who have been doing a
this
good
is my
job.
official
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah, yeah.
I know you guys do predictions on the show. This is my official prediction that Vegas will have a team.
Yeah, it feels that way, right? And basketball is
They keep
going there
moving
now.
everyone.
Yeah,
That's,
Baseball
that's
and
the key to
baseball.
signing Premier League players over here is they want to come play for
Vegas?
FC Vegas.
Yeah, we've been talking about this about Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
When Jack Grealish
He'd
is
had a hell of a time.
You would never see him on the pitch. He'd be stuck in the casinos. But yeah, Daniel and I have talked about it before. My perspective is go to 40 teams and then do 220 as you have in most leagues, 220 team leagues, and kind of build promotion relegation there. Whether that happens, that would be fantastic.
If it
but
happens,
I just don't think it happens.
If it happens,
but
I want Charlotte Independence to be part of the 40.
that'd be great.
Well, they've talked about a USL
Yes.
USL Pro Rel pyramid, and then if MLS instituted one, then they could be merged. But here's the deal with that: the problem is promotion needs to mean something,
Right.
But you also need to guarantee the people in the bottom of the second division that they're still going to make money.
Well, so it's parachute payments.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's that 350 million. How do we dish that out?
I would
500
love
million.
it.
Yeah.
The fans would love it, and it would
Yeah.
be great for soccer in America. And it would probably, but it would ultimately, that would be a USL killer. That would absolutely,
Sure.
Yeah.
that would I know people have said it all the time. That would probably finally kill off USL if the MLS did do something like that. So.
Yeah. We talked a lot about just kind of the state of the league and other teams, and Daniel brought up kind of the rebuilding process or the building of a squad. And, of course, your guys' main purview is Charlotte FC, who just announced a new manager, Dean Smith, who's coming over from Aston Villa and other places, and quite a signing, quite a hire, essentially. How do you guys see him coming in and rebuilding? Does this new TAM perspective change the way that he can build the squad, or how does this look
Statement of
like?
intent.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when you think about Dean Smith, you just think about the accolades and the accomplishments already that are there. And we talked to Greg Evans, a writer at The Athletic, on Charlotte Soccer Show about how Dean Smith really surprised him. He's covered Aston Villa for a long time. He covered Smith's tenure there, knows him quite well, and he was surprised that Smith signed on with Charlotte FC, which to me is like, I agree
He
with
expected
Danny.
Dean to get another job in England.
Well, Stoke City came calling.
Yeah.
at the last minute, Stoke realized that, wait a minute, one of these guys is going to get away to the States, and we're going to try to keep him here in the EFL, and they couldn't do it because if you look at Stoke's place, and we talked about this, Stoke's place on the table, it's like, does Dean Smith just manage two sides who got relegated, both Leicester and Norwich City, and do you want to hop on with Stoke City, who's 20th in the championship, and get relegated from the championship? It just didn't make sense.
Right.
Stoke City was the wrong club to come make that approach.
Had it been Birmingham City or something like that, might have been a different
It could have
story.
gone different.
Right.
Maybe Birmingham City, yeah. Obviously.
Probably not Birmingham City.
Something like that, though, not to the
Birmingham
bottom.
City.
Though, like you
Well,
said.
yeah, that would have been too. Yeah,
Rooney,
yeah, I agree.
yeah,
That would have been
already
too.
kicked Rooney to the
That would have been. That would have been too much
Rooney.
like crosstown rivalry bullshit that Rooney didn't be able to get involved in. But I will say this: think about it this way, and I'm gonna again, I'll put it in Charlotte FC terms, but apply to the whole league since we're talking about the MLS roundup here. Like, Charlotte FC went from their first manager was a guy who had won the Ecuadorian league, and that was his claim to fame, flamed out. Second manager was a guy whose claim to fame was Patrick Vieira's assistant. He flamed out, much like Vieira. Shout out to the gunner. I love him. But, I mean, so we go from those two to a guy who has managed Jack Grealish and a guy who's, like, been in the throes of Premier League promotion and relegation campaigns and who, like...
I was at Wembley.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
In front of the sold-out
A
Wembley.
guy who's managed in what they call the most expensive match in the world, right? That championship promotion match.
Which is
so
like,
if you want to talk about pressure, there's nothing more.
My favorite part by far of the Charlotte FC coaching search was that that championship playoff match was the two coaches that we were trying to hire.
Yeah.
And the same guy
exactly.
won again.
I mean,
The
history.
same guy won.
At least you got the winner.
Fra-
At least you took the winner, though.
Yeah, poor Frank got beat twice now.
Well,
by
Frank's going to no longer be managing at some point.
History does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme for sure. I think that's a great nugget. I just want to say that that's a level up for Charlotte FC. That's a level up for the league. And those type of managers, hopefully Dean Smith works out as a Charlotte fan. I desperately want it to happen. But, like, whether he does or not, it's just like one more sign of intent that the league is bringing in a higher level quality of managerial candidates.
Exactly, and kind of piggy off that, Columbus Crew just won the cup, and there's been rumors about Wolf Nancy maybe could find a job in Europe. So as we recruit higher and better coaches, you could kind of see not only players being an attractive outfit for Europe, but also coaches. And it's going to be really interesting to see, as New York just hired a European coach as well, it's going to be interesting to see, are they going to look more, abroad to bring in coaches than, domestic managers who have had experience in the MLS.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted an MLS manager for Charlotte, but I said this on our show, like, I just don't think I set my sights high enough. I was surprised by, again, that to use that football term, the statement of intent, that belief of, like, going out to get someone of a pedigree that I was higher than I was even thinking was in our candidate pool, to be honest. So I agree that is got to be, it's got to become a trend.
Is that an opportunity for the league? Is that a problem not only for the league but also the men's national team? If things like that going forward is something that we're concerned about,
I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. I think what you're seeing is a gold rush, right? You're going to see a gold rush, and the more that you think about the way that sports economics works now, is that players and managers follow the money. Right, and like when you see someone like Messi being signed, you see. And by the way, Dean Smith's his pay is not public, to my knowledge, which is something that I think we're going to have to dig into to kind of see what that deal is.
It should be out there.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's key to this conversation, right? And if people know what that money is,
He probably got an extra 5% on that Stoke rumor the day before he got hired, for sure.
That agent rumor was real
Hey,
nice.
just like,
for
yeah, I
him.
love this deal. Let's pretend Stoke wants to hire you and get 5% more.
yeah, it's just a couple different numbers on
Yeah,
David
yeah.
Tepper's end of month statement, right? He's going to go into the next year. I think the fiscal year. I mean, if he follows the 12-month calendar, his fiscal
Right.
year is coming up.
Yeah.
He snuck whatever
These
he's got
are
left. He's
These
just
are
threw it at
decimal
the-
places. These are decimal places.
Well, gents, looks like we all need another one. I want to get a couple on the other side of the break, a couple quick, just fast takes from you guys, highlights, kind of player of the year, things like that, rapid fire questions. So we'll grab a couple beers and we'll be right back on the other side of the break. Some extra questions to wrap us up. Welcome back. We're going to get into some rapid fire questions here with, again, we have our friends, our tremendous friends from Charlotte Soccer Show, Danny Brams, John Hayes. Guys, cheers.
No beer glass for me.
Daniel's got to go play some soccer. He's the youngin' here, keeps himself in shape.
Are you a DP on your nightly soccer team?
Yeah, they actually call me Carol.
Really?
King Carol.
King Carol?
Let's not inflate his ego too much, okay? I have to deal with him on a regular basis as it is. So, all right.
Have you learned Polish?
I have not. You have to do that.
So we want to get into some
Do
rapid
you like
fire
Polish
with you.
sausage?
Kielbasa? It's not too bad.
Could be worse. So we want to get into some rapid fire with you guys on some MLS. So Danny, give us your take on best player this year in MLS and why. Just give us a little background as to that.
It wouldn't have been my answer at the start, but it ultimately became Cucho. Cucho was too good. He was too he's a combination striker and creative attacking midfielder. Just does it all.
So not the MLS MVP?
Lucho Acosta. Lucho was
I was
really
getting
good.
confused there. I didn't know if it was Cuco.
Yeah, Lucho, Cucho, Lucho,
What is
Lucho,
it,
Cucho,
Cuco
Lucho,
Hernandez?
Lucho. Actually, shout out to. It's funny that I'm going to call her out for messing up names, and I don't remember her name. But the host of the MLS post-game show on the semis, she kept messing up Lucho Cucho like so bad. It was kind of funny. But Cucho Hernandez for Columbus, best player. Lucho Acosta.
That's who won MLS MVP.
He did, yeah. Lucho Acosta was the MVP. Good on him. Cucho Hernandez held the cup.
This is why we take this man's takes, because he didn't have the MLS MVP. He gives us an actual MVP of who.
I mean, what? I'm a punk rocker. I'm not gonna go with the mainstream guy who actually won the award. I'm gonna pick my own person for the award. And I
like
would have
it.
voted for
I like it.
Cucho. Like I said, Lucho Acosta is great, and he is a scorer from the creative attacking mid position, but he's not like. He can't do the same thing as Cucho, which is slide into a striker role and let someone else create as well, as much as Alvaro Barreal did create from the wings. But Cucho Hernandez, best player in MLS, he will be. I don't think he'll be back. I think he'll probably be gone in January somewhere. He's played for Watford before he came to MLS. I would love to see him stay in the league, but not in the same conference as Charlotte FC.
Goalkeeper of the year.
Wow. So I would give it to Celentano, the Cincy goalkeeper for sure, because he's so young, and Schulte for Columbus is also a young, great goalkeeper. Andre Blake will probably be recognized as the best goalkeeper in the league, most people would say. But I love what Celentano did, and as much as Costa's MVP campaign is why Cincy won the Supporter Shield, for a 21-year-old goalkeeper to step in on a Supporter Shield winning team, that's incredible to me. That's awesome.
If there's one good thing that MLS has, it's some damn good goalkeepers, historically speaking. I feel
That's because the back lines are so bad. They have
That
to
is
be.
true.
They at least put up good
They're
stats.
shot stoppers.
They at least put up good stats.
They're definitely shot stoppers. I don't know
Maybe
about
not the
goalies.
That's the number one position that MLS sends to Europe,
That's
right?
why. That's why.
exactly.
That was the conclusion I was drawing.
I think this one's pretty easy, but manager of the year.
You think it's easy? I'm drawing a blank. It's got to be Nancy. Dancing Nancy.
What about Pat Noonan? We talked about the Supporter Shield and how important that is.
Good on him, but I mean, so Nancy kind of gets it for like the sort of the double dip achievement of he was the manager at Montreal.
This would
and
be
he
a
had-
good time, by the way, to say Danny was treated in the VIP section.
Yes, exactly. A little bias. I didn't want to throw it out there at him, but I saw the spread that he had at the MLS Cup. So
It wasn't Taco Tuesday, but I did have two giant build your own tacos from the taco
Someone
bar,
bought his vote.
courtesy of the Soccer Dawn. But ultimately, and you know who I saw in the VIP? What MLS legend do you think I saw in the VIP? I'm going to say recently retired, cup winner within the last 7 years, central defensive mid / center back.
Jermaine Jones? Beckerman.
Bradley.
No,
Oh, no, Beckerman?
you'll never get it. Michael Parkhurst. Michael Parkhurst from Atlanta. Maybe only a legend.
definitely would not have
Maybe
gotten
only
that.
a legend in Atlanta fans' minds, but everybody loves Parky. And I was at the bar waiting for a drink. I looked to my left. It's Michael Parkhurst. I'm like, Hey, Parky, what's up, man? He's like, hey, how you doing?
Maybe Michael Bradley hasn't retired, but he did retire when he played center back for Charlotte FC.
Yeah. We retired him for sure. I think he's assistant coaching for his dad in Norway right now. But so to get to I love the fact that John always says, "Oh, Danny Bram's rapid fire," and then I refuse.
Yep,
to.
I know what we're getting with.
Here's why Nancy gets it, because he knows his worth. He gets the award for knowing his worth. He was the manager of Montreal. The ownership was bad. The sporting directing was bad. They got rid of some of their best players. They were a club and an organization that was adrift. And he said, "You know what? Fuck it. I'm out. Columbus, come get me." And he made himself available for Columbus crew to come get him. And he said, "I'm going to make it work. I got the vision, but I need what's going on in the crew. I don't need what's going on in Montreal. It's not right." And he knew his worth, and he kind of took a risk to leave a job he had to go hope to get a job at Columbus. They locked it down. He won the cup.
So
Also, they traded they sold their very best player mid-season, Lucas Zelarayan,
GM of the year
to the
as well.
fucking Saudis.
Yeah.
To the fucking Saudis.
Which was crazy at the time, and then you get Diogo Rossi, and you make a bunch of trades,
Yeah.
and it worked out for you. Get
Right.
Julian Gressel as well.
Right, they bring in Gressel, and then they were like, Gressel's good, but let's go get Rossi instead, and Gressel goes to the
I
bench.
think Gressel's a free agent.
He is. He's
Yeah,
gonna
Gressel's
go to
probably going to Miami.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
So-
Miami is likely destination.
That actually cues me up for my next question. I know it's still the offseason and it hasn't been decided, not every roster is in place, but who do you see as your dark horse next year that's, not being talked about?
Charlotte FC, not even close. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's.
Besides that.
All right,
Besides
all right. 1B would
Yeah,
be.
'cause that'd be my answer, too.
I do think teams. I don't think it's like the NFL. It's not quite NFL like where you can completely rebuild and come out of the woodwork.
Unless you're Cincy.
But since he turned around in 2 years, so dark horse. Miami doesn't count because they missed the
They're not a
playoffs,
dark
but they have
horse.
Messi.
They have Messi,
Yeah,
the best
exactly.
player ever.
It might be New York Red Bulls, to be honest, as much as I hate them. They had a little bit of a season to forget. They did crush Charlotte in that playing game, but then they were no-shows against Cincinnati in their series. So they're
will
bringing
get Forsberg
They're
from-
bringing in Forsberg. Yeah,
We'll
they're
always
bringing
have that
they have a
bicycle.
new coach. They bring in Emil Forsberg from the Red Bulls Europe operation.
Yep.
I, for one, think that could be a disaster, but it could also be a huge success. I feel like Forsberg is an all or nothing. He's either going to not fit, he's going to be too old and not able to play their style, and he's not that old, but he doesn't play a lot of minutes. He's not a guy that you consider a 90-minute player. However, he could just have so much talent that he just dominates. So who knows? So I think Red Bulls are a dark horse. Sadly.
The good thing about the Red Bull group is they all play the same football. So when he does get the
Right.
start, he's still a dynamic player. So he should be able to
He's
translate.
extremely
It's
talented.
just a matter of how much life is in the legs of him.
Also, Seattle will come back.
Seattle.
will come back for
No
sure.
Ladero. That hurts though.
Yeah, but they're a different team this year, and I mean, they went pretty far this year, so
They
it's tough
did.
to call them a dark horse, but I still think.
That's right.
Eastern Conference or Western Conference?
Well, this year was by far the East. The East was way better. I think we saw that. Cincy, I think, would have beaten LAFC also. So I'm going to say Eastern Conference because that's where the Crown plays.
That debate is the same in NFL,
Yeah.
NFC versus AFC, and it always I'm always just it's hard to. What does it actually mean when that's the case, though? Is my question. Even if West is not as good as East, what does it mean
Right.
if the top team is still the best in the league? Right?
Well,
so
you
it's
do play
it's
a
almost
slightly,
easier.
You play a
I'd
slightly
rather
staggered schedule.
I'd rather be in the worst conference with the best team than be in the best conference with the best team.
And that's what LAFC did this year for sure, I think. I think it's descriptive, not predictive, right? You can say, oh, this conference is better than the other one, but like Johnny said, it doesn't really mean anything. It's not
Yeah.
going to tell you what's about to happen. The fact that the East was better this year doesn't mean it will be better next year. The West could be better next year. So it doesn't really mean much predictive.
Especially when
wise.
when 9 teams get in, Danny, it
Anything
means
can
even
happen.
less.
Yeah.
Because the schedules are not obviously equal.
And also, I believe, 10 coaching changes? Like Charlotte FC is not the only team with a new coach. Everybody has a new coach this year.
It's gonna be really
Everybody
exciting.
fired their fucking
Feels
coach.
like it, right?
Yeah.
It'd be wide open.
Yeah, it should be wide open, hopefully.
To bring things a little closer to home, a couple Charlotte FC questions to take us home. Playoffs or no playoffs next year?
Definitely playoffs for sure. It's like clearly step 1 is start the franchise. Step 2 is make the playoffs. Step 3 is actually get into the playoffs and maybe compete for MLS Cup. Especially if you have, I think the most important thing to do is host a playoff match, right? It still hasn't done that yet, Charlotte FC. So that would be probably the number 1 goal. And I think in February, talk to me about what the roster looks like, and who knows what could happen.
We had the talent to be a better placed playoff team this year, and the coaching let us down. I'm convinced.
No doubt about it.
What spot in the table in the East Conference will make you be satisfied? You know, like 9.
Host a playoff game, top 4.
So top 4. Okay.
Top
Yeah,
four-
but
top
no,
four in
but
the
you
East
host a
makes me
playoff
happy.
game because of the best of 3s. You do.
Top 4 in the
Not wrong.
top 4 in the East to me is a good season. Even if you don't go on to win the whole thing, top 4 in the East tells me that you were
We're in the mix.
You were in the mix. You were a contender.
Yeah, being a contender, being in the mix. I think, oh man, for me it's just like you got to be competing for something. Whether it's Charlotte FC, it's just make sure that you're competing. That's why the Leagues Cup run was fun, because it felt like you were actually competing for a trophy. The club is really after its first piece of trophy, a piece of hardware, I should say, and getting that trophy. That's ultimately what the goal is for every club. I know that, but Charlotte FC was built in the image of Atlanta United. I know a lot of people don't like to recognize that or feel that way. I mean, but I do, right? We are held up to Atlanta United's standard, and that's why I think it's Charlotte FC's biggest rival.
And last one for me, Western Conference opponent that Charlotte has not played that you're looking forward on the schedule.
It's not even close, but it needs to. Well, we have played them, but it's got to be at Austin. I want to play at Austin. I desperately want a road game in Austin. I mean, they have a great stadium there, and I have tons of roots in Austin. I would make all my friends from Austin come to the match and buy them Charlotte gear to wear, and it would be great.
So the question is, which road match do we want to go to?
Correct. Which
Okay.
road match?
Well, you mentioned Austin, and I wanted to make the point that, did you see what happened with the season ticket members this year?
Did not.
About how the club is including an away game with your season
Oh, I
ticket
did see that.
package.
Yeah.
So now it's a good question. It's relevant now
If
because
you downgraded from the club level, you lost 2 season tickets. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know anyway who that would have happened to. I don't know. I
2 away game tickets.
First time
Yeah,
I'm hearing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that the folks up in club or all the corporate the offices here in town are going to be able to get to the away matches this season. But I mean, honestly, we go to DC every season. So for me, it's DC. We're going back to DC. We're going to see a fucking goal.
We got to see a goal, yeah. Right. We saw one fake goal and then like 6 DC goals in a row. So yeah, for sure.
Sounds like it's going to be a fun road trip in the future.
I mean, I love going to DC. It's an easy drive. It's a beautiful drive. I always go up 95 through like the main way, but then on my drive back to Charlotte, I go through the slow way through Virginia Hills.
We did that drive,
Yeah.
and I always remember the tank. The petty tank on the way back.
Yeah,
the petty tank on the way
tank,
back.
yeah.
Because I mean, it's one of those things where if the club is going to give you a ticket, right, make it as inexpensive as possible.
Right.
Get in your car and drive somewhere. Don't go fly somewhere crazy. Just go drive, make the drive, and make
leverage that free ticket into a very cheap road trip.
Yeah, 100%.
You're loving life.
Yeah.
Well, gents, we really appreciate it. We really enjoyed the conversation about MLS and where things are going. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you can follow John and Danny at Charlotte Soccer Show or For the Crown Baby on X. Please go ahead and download, subscribe, and follow those guys. They do tremendous coverage of MLS and of course Charlotte FC specifically. We've had a blast. We're looking forward to some more content with you guys in the future. Daniel is going to be on break here for the holidays, going on the 7 Seas excursion. But we'll be back, and we'll definitely get you guys up to speed on everything. Again, thank you guys so much for joining. We really enjoyed it, and looking forward to some more conversation in the future.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Round up.